Hello, this is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today we are going to start a new series on contaminated soil. So let me just tell you the backstory as to why I started this particular devotional, and then we'll get started. So I have plants. Clearly there's one behind me here. But I have other plants in my house, and my mother always grew plants. She had a really like a green thumb, and she grew plants often, and they really grew very large and beautiful and whatnot. And so we have my mother's grandchildren plants and children plants, like, you know, we took them and grafted and put them in different places or whatever. Don't ask me the technical term because I like plants, but I don't know a lot about necessarily the gardening, only what my mother has taught me. But anyhow, we took snips, little parts of the plants, and transplanted them and did things like that. And so this, for the past few weeks or whatnot, I noticed that I was having like gnats around a particular plant that was actually really healthy, was growing really well, was quite large, but there was a lot of gnats around it. And so what I did was, after the gnats wouldn't go away, my mom tried to give me some strategies to get the gnats away. And so the first thing I did was try to trap the gnats, thinking maybe they're just excess gnats, you know, running around the plant. And that didn't work. And so I trapped the gnats, and they some of them got trapped, but there were way too many to just be trapped and die and be done. So I still had an issue with too many gnats. And then after trapping the gnats, then I tried to dry out the soil because they're attracted to moisture. So I tried to carefully dry out the soil without killing the plant and, you know, whatever. And that didn't work because, again, too many gnats. The soil was completely infected, and they had laid eggs by the time the gnats kind of laid like larvae and whatnot. And so the whole soil was pretty much contaminated. Once I got to the understanding that the entire soil was contaminated, then I knew I had to go through the kind of extensive and very fragile, delicate process of get the plant out the soil, cleaning the plant well enough that none of the larvae would be on the plant, and cleaning out the pot that the plant was in, getting rid of all of that soil because now it's contaminated. So you don't want to put it with you don't want to put it in your backyard or anything else because it's all contaminated, and starting afresh with new soil. So this devotional series is about that concept in our lives, and how we can be in a place in which our soil is contaminated. So to begin, let's talk about where my scripture reference is. So anytime I think about plants, well, there's a lot of references to plants and healing and the use of plants in scripture, but one particular place that struck me and that gave me application for this story as I was transplanting and clearing out my contaminated soil, and hoping now my soil's been transplanted. Now I'm hoping that my new soil and the plant won't have gone through so much trauma that the plant will be damaged. Like, hopefully the plant will be just fine if I did everything right. But we did run into a few complications, and I'll talk about that later on. So I'm reading from Song of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, and the verse that we're going to look at is verse 15. And it says, "Take us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vine, for our vines have tender grapes." Okay, so if you are familiar with the Song of Solomon, or if you're not familiar with the Song of Solomon is definitely poetic, right? And it's meant to, by what most believe to be, somewhat of a love song, but the love song parallels our relationship with the Lord. Okay, this is my beloved, my lover, and they're having an exchange about how much they love each other and all the intimacies and details of, and the expressions and passion of their love. Okay. And God really wants us to have that type of detailed, intimate, entangled, passionate love with him. And so that's what Song of Solomon is talking about most of the time. But this particular verse in Song of Solomon, the 15th verse, is actually talking about rectifying a problem with the vine. And the vine is symbolic of the integrity of the relationship. Okay, because it says, "Take us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vine, for our vines have tender grapes." So what is he saying? Like, we bear good fruit. our situation is doing good, is bearing good fruit, is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And if you read in the second chapter, you'll find, yeah, it's doing well. This is doing good. And but they're small foxes, and the small foxes, they want to spoil the vine. They want to destroy the vine as it grows up. And so he's saying, look, take us the foxes, get rid of these little foxes that are destroying the vine, because if we let them go, they're going to mess up the good fruit that comes, right? Our vines have good fruit. They have tender grapes. And so we don't want to mess up these tender grapes that those foxes, in destroying the vine, will eventually destroy. They'll mess up our fruit. And so here goes the application. When we think about our lives and our circumstances and our environment, we have to be mindful that there are things like these small foxes and like the little gnats that were in my potting soil that will destroy the vine. They seem harmless, to the plant. The plant was strong and green and growing, and maybe I'll bring it in so you guys can see. It's really huge, actually, so maybe I'll have to go to it. But this plant was looking healthy and strong. It seemed fine, and it was growing, right? The root system was very extensive. It was growing. It seemed like it was doing fine. But what was happening that wasn't visible to the naked eye, which is why we had to rectify the gnats. Not only were they nuisances, but they were microscopically biting into the soil. Living in the soil and feeding on the root system of this plant. And what they would have caused is a type of infection, sort of say, or bacterial type of issue with the plant, and the plant would have rotted and died if I let it go too far, because this soil was infected. So it's just the same as this scripture from Song of Solomon, that the small foxes, those little tiny gnats and their larvae, destroy the vine. They'll mess up the plant. They'll kill it dead. And there's things in our lives, not just in our interpersonal relationship, that represent these small foxes or these gnats and their larvae, and how they can destroy indeed our vine. They can destroy our ability to bear good fruit. And so we want to be mindful as we think about our environment and the things around us, that we don't allow small foxes or little gnats and their larvae to come up into our soil and contaminate our soil in such a way that even though it seems like we're doing good, we're only waiting for what's eventually going to happen, which is we're going to be rotted and no good. Right? And we're going to stop bearing fruit. We're going to stop being green. We're going to stop being good and healthy. And we're going to start being unhealthy and toxic. And by the time that is set in, we really have let things progress too far. Okay. And so what this passage is trying to warn us about, or what he and his beloved are talking about or exchanging here, is this idea that there are small things in our life, microscopic relationships or conversations or places that you go, maybe things that you do, that you want to be mindful to eradicate before they go too far. They may just seem like maybe a little bit of a nuisance. Oh, I know that that's not necessarily beneficial. I know that gossiping is not necessarily good, or I know that conversation or those people are not necessarily healthy for me, or these places I probably shouldn't go to, but I'm just going to swat it kind of like a fly. I'm not going to really worry about what that means right now, and I'm just going to keep on going. But remember, again, like I said, I saw the physical gnats in my house, but there was a contamination of the soil. So I could swat all I wanted to, but the gnats would keep coming. I would be swatting, and eventually I would either get used to the gnats, set up something to kind of trap the gnats so that they wouldn't bother me, but it never rectified the bigger issue, which is these little small foxes, these little gnats, right? And so sometimes there's things in our life that we passively look over, we don't want to deal with, we don't want to work through, we don't want to confront, we don't want to eradicate, we don't want to clean, or we don't want to be right in a place, and those things can contaminate the soil. And so my petition to you, and just is really just day one, is just to think about it. Are there small foxes that can destroy your vine? Could be spending habits. It could be envy. It could be jealousy. Could be bitterness. It could be unfaithfulness. Could be doubt. It could be your your concerns don't have anything to do with what God has told you to be concerned about, right? You're busy doing things you shouldn't be doing. There could be a lot of different things. And for each of us, there probably will be different things. But remember, even if you think of them as insignificant, not a big deal, at the end of the day, the Christian journey is not really about nitpicking all the different tiny minuscule things that need to be changed in your life, but it's not allowing anything to come up and contaminate your ability to bear the good fruit. And so in that way, you do need to be somewhat diligent, and you need to be able to pay attention to the understanding that when something comes up and contaminates the soil, indeed your fruit will be changed. And many people think it won't. And that's the biggest misperception, right? Is that people assume that, oh, I be doing this or having a little that, this is not going to be a big deal. That's not going to be a big deal. Over time, this is not gonna make a difference, or nobody's going to know about that. That's not going to be a big deal. But for one, we can always see what other people think they're hiding, okay? The world can see what people think they're hiding. And then eventually the small foxes do indeed destroy the vine. The passage comes true. And so what about your soil? Are there things that need to be cleaned? Ways that you need to decontaminate? If there are, then great. That's fine. If there aren't, then great. That's fine. But this series is dedicated to identifying the things in our soil that might need to be cleaned up and moving forward to decontaminating the soil. All right, we're praying for you. We hope you're praying for us. We will see you again tomorrow with another of our devotionals. We've kind of set the base ground for this, and now we're going to really kind of talk and dig into cleaning up contaminated soil, because it becomes a big deal as we move forward. All right, I will see you again tomorrow morning, and until then, be blessed.